Well, Alexander, once more, thank you for having us.
Great to have you here.
You're welcome. First of all, why did you become master distiller, and how did you become a master distiller?
Well, to me, it was a dream come true. I grew up in a farm in South Burgundy, and I grew up making wine. And my grandfather was a bouilleur de cru, meaning distilling your own crop, your own production. And so I learned to make wine at a young age. As early as I could walk, I was harvesting the grapes and living on a farm with my cousins. And to me, the wealth is in the land. You know, when I see great bartenders, and I always tell them, you are in the farming business. Every product behind the bar, there's a farmer growing something somewhere. So, you know, I had learned to make wine from a young age, and I was like, I'm very independent-minded, so I said, I'd like to create my own farm, my own little world. He was too young when I was, you know, ready to work. And so I started working and learning technically on the estate, and then I went on and I said, if I want to run my own little show, I have to learn English. I didn't speak English before, so I learned English. And then I had to learn some business, you know, because I wanted to be able to run a business. And I thought we were going to start a little thing and make the best that we think of. And I met a small cognac producers that was 32 years ago. And he proposed to me, he says, why don't we do this together, because my family wants to retire. And I met the lady, the last heir of the Ferrand family. And we are kind of carrying on that tradition. And slowly we grew, obviously, but we started with cognac. And why I became that is because, you know, knowing to wine, and I knew about distilling, and I thought I had this opportunity to enter the cognac business. And so I've learned, and I was very lucky. I was entrusted by two master blender and master distiller to train me about distilling and about aging. And so, you know, there's no school for that in cognac. It's just somebody giving you the baton and say, you're going to be the next guy. And so that's what I've learned. And I loved it. I loved every moment of it. I'm very obsessive. I'm trying to learn everything. I'm doing a lot of historical research. A lot of people think I'm stuck in the traditional of the past, and I don't think it's true, because I want to learn from the past, the present, and the future. You know, we also have a guy working with me who's a PhD and who's, you know, analyzed the soil of cognac and how the relationship about this, his thesis was about the terroir of cognac. And so he's very scientific, and then science is only a little part of making great spirits, but you have to know that part. And then of course, traditional training is a bigger part. So that's why I decided this, because to me, you know, what I like the most is creating a spirit. And I did it because when you make a beautiful cognac, you create great emotions. When you make a beautiful rum, it's about the emotions. These are all crazy little creations. All these bottles are like five-legged sheeps, you know, or two-headed chickens, you know, because they're experiments. So here there are experiments about different type of wood you can use. We experience in 15 different type of woods. Or 15. Yes, some of which from Brazil, you know, and some of which from France, and some of which from Sweden, and from which from Japan. Make sure you taste the gin that we aged in a barrel made from juniper berry. The juniper berry tree, we made a barrel with it, like a vat. And it's very delicious. Nobody did it before, as I know of. So we tried, and I was thinking, imagine you run the distillery, and you have 10 pots still, and you distill cognac in the winter. What do you do in the summer? Yeah. You're young, you're full of energy. So, yeah. Plus also you want to do something with your life. You want to do something with these pot stills. You want to create. I think I'm a creator. I like to create. So we decided with the team, let's make gin. They're like, what? Gin? And yes. And so it took me 5 years to convince customs and everybody. You know, it was difficult. And at the time, once we were done, we're like, nobody wanted to buy our gin because they're like, rare, this is French gin, it's luxury, like high grade gin. No, gin is just a regular drink. They're like, no, it's very special. And I was helped by two things. Once, it was a journalist from the New York Times who loved Ferrand cognac, and when they taste the gin, he says, Alexandre, this is great gin. Then we did all the competition in Germany and in England and in everywhere, and very often Citadel came number one. We had the little distributor in Spain, and he calls me, he says, Ferran Adrià, you know, the great chef.
Yeah, of course.
He's on TV, he's making a gin and tonic, saying gin and tonic is a gastronomic act. And he's making a gin tonic with Citadel, saying you need to use a high quality gin. And so of course that helps, you know, when these guys. So all this has helped us. And then the trend started in Spain, in Portugal. You guys were really the early guys. And then now it's just the world is looking at great quality gin. As you know now, there's millions of gins.
Yeah.
But keep something in mind. It is very easy to make gin, but it is very hard to make a great gin. If you make gin, you respect the juniper berries. You know, and so you respect your materials. You make them shine. You know, if you work with cane, you know, for rum or molasses, you just need to have that aromatic. So the key to it is really to capture the essence of what you work for. You're distilling. So when you're a master blender, you're like a nose for a perfume maker. And when you're a distiller, you're the alchemist trying to capture the essence. And as a blender, you're trying to marry the essence to create a beautiful tasting experience.
And about that, how do you train yourself for the aromas and the flavors that you want to get? How do you train yourself?
You know, when I trained, the guy who trained me, he was a dictator with me. And he said I had to taste 80 samples a day and write notes and comment. Well, I remember one day I was working so hard, I was very young, and I was in my home coming back, and I was exhausted, and I had 80 samples to taste, and I was like, is this the job for me? This is crazy. You know, it was at boot camp. And I remember I said, I'm going to make a bath. You know, I go in my bath. I was like, I still have the sample to taste. So I get out of my bath, and I put all the samples on the table next to my bath. And I'm tasting, and the water was so hot, and I'm tasting. And then I got a little drunk, and put the glasses on the water, and they were floating, and I'm like, all these cognac samples, I'm like, this is a job for me.
Well, in the flavors, in the aromas that you get, how do you decide it for this type of spirit, like the Citadel gin? How do you decide the flavors or the aromas that you want?
And that's very important what you just said, because you know there's a technique called mise en valeur. So when you make a spirit, and I think it's the same when you make a drink as a bartender, by the way. When you make a spirit, you have to decide what is it that I'm telling you. So for example, if I'm making Citadel, I'm telling you fresh juniper berries with a little song of citrus. But then I use the other elements, nutmeg and cinnamon and fennel and so on, or violets, not to show you the violet, but to make this beautiful story shine. I want the juniper berries to be the best juniper berries. So of course, to be the best, you just make it pretty with a little citrus and then, you know, the other elements. So again, here is that's your decision when you're making the product, right? So to do that, we had to invent a specific way to make Citadel gin, and we have a patent for that.
You're very attached with this, to cognac, the part that we are. For all of your products, this region has a lot of importance for you, right? For the products.
Well, you know, cognac has a lot of know-how about pot still, and you know, a lot of know-how about aging and blending. And that's a common denominator for all spirits. And that's where I was trained, you know. But as you know, I'm crazy about gin as well, and I'm crazy about rum. These are my three passions, you know. And so cognac, of course, is where I live most of the time. But I live a week every month in Barbados now, and working with this incredible team of West Indies Rum Distillery. These guys are great, and they taught me a lot of things. And of course, I shared my knowledge with them. So yes, I like I like to learn all the time. So in cognac, you learn a lot about the blending. Really, it's crazy the way it is being done and the aging. You know, in the Caribbeans, you learn a lot about fermentation and distilling. They know about every type of pot still or every type of column still. They have learned, they have borrowed knowledge, and they have developed their own knowledge. So what I'm trying to do is add up all this knowledge that helps me create, you know, these spirits. So yes, cognac is kind of of course, my first love. But luckily, I have 3 loves.
Now 3?
Yeah, cognac. As you know, rum and gin. These are
And
the
the other,
3.
and the other, like the dry croissant that you've made.
And all the dry curacao, these are the dry curacao is like a cousin of cognac. That falls under that category. When we make Stiggins pineapple rum, that falls under the, of course, the rum. For example, when we make a gin, that's with cherry petals. That's within the gin. So they belong to these 3 worlds. In my mind, at least, they belong in these 3 worlds. That are very specific worlds.
For the degree, the alcohol degree, do you have some justification, or why do you want some degree on each bottle or on each product? Do you have something?
That's a very, very important question, by the way. Very important, because if you look at the proof of my products, they're all over the place.
Yeah, that's why
we have 40.2, we have 69, we have 58, 57.8, because the job is to find the perfect proof. Because the proof is a multiplier of the taste elements of that spirit. So you want to multiply high or low depending on the quantity you start with.
Okay.
But then if you understand them well, and that's why I'm so happy you guys are here, is just you want to understand that instrument. You want to see the guy making that instrument. What kind of wood you were using, and so how dry is that, and so on. So my suggestions, I always say, I just had a journalist from New York that was asking me about Stiggins Fancy, and I said, what was the drink or your dream when you made that product? I made Stiggins as a sipper, to be sipped. And every time I go into a bar, a bartender makes a drink with this, and I'm like, of their creation, I'm like, wow. I had no clue, you see.
Gives you an idea.
That, I had no clue. This is their job. My job is to make this and say, here, this is my baby. I always say, when a violin player is good, when he plays, it looks hard. When a violin player is excellent, it looks easy. And I think it's great same for a drink. It should feel easy, but behind there's all this complexity. But it's not for you to. It's not for me to tell you. You should just feel the beauty of it. And I think it's the same with a drink. You can have like something that feels very simple, very straightforward, but there's so much attention to it.
One last question. What do you think is the best part of your job?
The creative part, one, and the second part, being with the team. I'm lifted by these guys. I'm not easy to work with, I know, but I owe so much to them. They feed me. And as you've seen, all the Ferrand, maybe Vincent, all these guys, they're special. They're special people. And they're not chosen by chance. And they lift me. And so that's the part. And so when I get to create these products and live with these guys, as you see, I live with everybody around, that's the 2 parts I like the most. That's it. If I can do both for the rest of my life, it's perfect. Being with a team of great guys, that are a bit crazy, and and creating products, and we can make a living doing this. You guys come and visit. That's okay.